Um, Welcome everyone to our talk on COREXplore Core Careers Decoded. The training unit of the placement unit of BITS Pilani campus has organized this talk, and it answers the most fundamental question of the A1, A4, and AB students of campus. Simply, which who go around telling people, "यार core तो secondary option है, यार core में तो CTC ही नहीं है." This is what you'll hear from any of these students who come to campus, and throughout their time on campus, all they do is explore other non-core options. But to show the actual trajectory and path followed by people doing in core, today the placement unit's training unit has organized this talk with two of our really stellar alumnus. So to begin, we'll have to say that we're sorry to inform you that one of our speakers, Nithya Agarwal, has some family issues at home, which is why she won't be joining us today. But moving on to our first speaker, Arnab Panda. Arnab was a mechanical engineering student at our campus from 2015 to 2019. During his PS1, he went to HPCL, post which he was a Inspire intern at Tata Steel, and he did his PS2 intern at Nomura. Post which he ended up taking a placement as a manager mechanical maintenance for Tata Steel, at which he stayed for 3 years. Currently, he is a student as a postgraduate MBA student at IIM Indore, where he'll be there from 2022 to 2024. Arnab, you may take the stage.
Thank you, Rishabh, for introducing me. It's really weird to be at this side of the dais. So, anyways, to discuss why did I choose for a core placement, let's go back to the summer of 2019. So, I had four options. One, I could continue at my practice school at Ramura, or I could join either of IIM, Indore, or Kozhikode, or shift to Tata Steel. So at Nomura, I was confined to two screens, and maybe I would graduate to four, six, or eight screens. So I wasn't very satisfied with the challenges it offered. I was looking for a broader canvas to paint, and that is when I decided to choose Tata Steel, and it was one of the best decisions of my life. And just to discuss why that was, let's split this into three segments. Number one, the sheer scope of possibilities that core sector offers. So, just to think about it, nobody at such a young age typically leads a team of 50 plus people, and you're also handling equipment worth hundreds of thousands of crores. Add to that, you also take a lot of responsibility for everything that's going on in the core sector, and you see your work produce tangible results right in front of you. Just to give an example, the kind of work, apart from what technical work exists, could be dealing with challenges like how do you design the digitization of some systems? How do you design the right sizing of inventory? How do you, let's say, act on environmental problems within the plant itself? And add on to that, how do you, let's say, cross train people? How do you, let's say, impact other KPIs? So, two examples stand out. First one was like when we were looking at the harder concepts like LTI goals, first aid goals, and we realized that this could be, let's say, hard KPIs for senior up, but how do you translate an LTI KPI to somebody who's working on the shop floor? What does that mean to him? Apart from that, there was another initiative when during COVID we faced a downsizing of manpower temporarily. So we had to cross train people. There were also instances when we had to actively destigmatize failure because 20-year-olds were better than 40-year-olds in a lot of things. And hence, coming to the profile building opportunities, we'll discuss two aspects of it. One, the software part. I think in core sector, you typically host people of all distinctions with equal fervor, which helps you build your EQ, which is an underrated thing in the industry today. You'll also be dealing with a lot of crisis. You'll be handling manpower, to an extent, even financials and even inventory. And that helps you develop as a person. On the software aspect, on the harder aspects, core sector provides excellent CV building opportunities. So whatever you do is typically tangible and can be quantified, and the impact also runs into crores, which helps you build a very good CV when it comes to say an MBA or a technical masters abroad or even in India. Add to that, core companies also invest a lot into you. They spend a lot into training. So I received GB training, Six Sigma training, and all that. which really helped me during my summers at Amindor. Now, discussing the next slide. What does a typical day at core sector looks like? So this is broadly been categorized into three segments. One is the entry level, which is roughly less than 4 years. One is the mid level, 4 to 10 years, and one is senior level. So at the entry level, you will be broadly dealing with the planning and execution of things and the exigency handling of things. So what does execution look like? Let's say you decide what all planned or unplanned jobs will you be tackling today? What kind of spare requirement do you need to project for the upcoming fiscal? How do you decide your manpower allocation? To an extent, you will also be dealing with the financial impact of that. And as you progress, your exigency handlings comes down. Exigency would be, let's say, a breakdown or an unplanned event or something to be executed at a very short notice. You move into more strategy oriented roles, like what should the plant look like in terms of inventory level or manpower level, say 5 years down the line. And at a very senior level, you are very much into the strategy side of things. So how should the next XMTPA of a steel plant look like? What all equipment should be added there? What all kind of commissioning should happen and all that? So now, moving to the next slide. Okay, the most interesting slide, I guess, the end of tenure. Typical exit options of a core sector are broadly at the entry level. They are usually an MBA, which is what most of us eventually would pursue, or a technical master's, an MTech, an MS, or a PhD, or internal transfers or exit to other firms. So MBAs is what I and a lot of my friends eventually ended up doing. And I'll tell you why it's so important, because number one, you are dealing with a lot of people, which helps you understand a lot of aspects of OBHR. You're also dealing with vendors, which helps you understand B2B marketing and purchase process. You also deal with operations planning and project management when you're trying to execute a new project. Let's say a pipeline is being laid, or let's say you're executing a shutdown. So the real whatever you learn in critical path method, PERT, all of that is being realistically applicable there, and hence you become a pretty good candidate to pursue an MBA. And typically exits are into Blackie IIMs or XLRI or ISB, let's say after 3 or 4 years. And people also have a very high probability of ending up at marquee consulting firms, which are the most sought after roles in B schools. MS and MTech, again, that is a very good opportunity, but it's also more sought after by people who are directly related to the production process. Maintenance side, I've seen lesser exits, marginally lesser exits, but some of our own alumni are into UIUC, Georgia Tech, A&M, and one of our own alumni is also doing a company-sponsored MBA, post which they will either switch to a marketing role or an internal strategy role. The third is internal transfers. So after 3 or 4 years, you're pretty well aware of how does a core company function, broadly speaking. How do the people behave? What are the bureaucratic inertias you will face with, etc. Hence, let's say there are internal strategy roles, which could be like how do you raise the EBITDA margins from X to Y%, or how do you implement decarbonization initiatives? How do you select the right uh, projects which need to be executed under a certain capex margin, etc. For all these, typically, uh, these are you will be the one who will be shortlisted for that for two broad reasons. Number one, you join at a very executive cadre, the management trainee technical or the GT cadre. These are highly coveted cadres, and they are also usually vetted for such roles because they are in general pretty good. And secondly, this is also an aspect of core which is less talked about, because once you have done a few stints, let's say the marketing and sales side or the procurement side or decarbonization initiatives or internal strategy roles, you also understand the system and business even better, which helps you propel your career to mid-level or higher level executive roles. And the last one, exit to other firms, I've seen that very less happen at Tata Steel, honestly. Most exits to other firms are either into supply chain firms or into OEMs, which supply original equipment to the firm itself. And this is usually at a very mid-level role or a senior role that I've seen these exits.
Thank you, Arnab. for your contribution to this talk. What you provide was really insightful guidance and something which is rarely unheard of. Moving on to our next speaker, Kovid Mehta. Kovid is a recent graduate from BITS when he had his tenure at the Pilani campus in manufacturing engineering from 2019 to 2023. While his stay on campus, um, he did his PS, he did his finance change intern at Credit Suisse, his summer internship as a supply chain intern at AB InBev, and proceeded to join AB InBev as a global management trainee. On to you, Kovid.
Thank you, Rishabh. So a little about me. That's me on the left, and I definitely wasn't smiling that much during my placements. But yeah, as you can see on my left is what pays my bills currently. So I'm working for AB InBev as a GMT. AB InBev is the world's largest brewer and the mission to become the world's largest beverage manufacturer. You might have seen all these beers, and that's been my life lately. Being associated with these prestigious legacy brands is a privilege in itself. And like all of you, I am a part of BITS family. I'll always be indebted to BITS for giving me this platform and opportunity to lead, grow, and innovate and achieve. And on my right, you can see my bills. And I'm into fine arts, and there are a few screenshots of my paintings. I'm into cinema, and I'm into theater as well. So there's a really good chance that if a movie is released this Friday, I would have seen it by Saturday. I'm foodie. I like to experiment with food, try different cuisines, try different restaurants. I love to travel also. A fun fact about me: during my final rounds of interviews, I was in Egypt traveling, and this year I've been in 11 different cities, 7 internationally and 4 in India, and I'm a sneakerhead. So that's about me. Rishabh, can you please change the slide? So yeah, I'll be taking you through the 8 steps to prepare for your interviews, and we'll be discussing each and every step in detail. You see the guy in the first step, he doesn't look very pleased with his current situation. That was me a couple of semesters back. But right now I'm here to help you to figure out how to structurally prepare for your interviews through an 8-step process and be in a better situation. Next slide. First, you have to understand what you want to do. So first and foremost, what core placements give you is that the opportunity to apply your technical knowledge that you have learned in these 3-4 years and to solve real life problems. This is the era of specialization, and that's what a core placement gives you. A specialist is also valued by consulting firms these days, and they are coming out. The consulting firms are coming out with specialist roles in the field of core consulting. But you can only consult once you have spent enough ample time in the field doing core field work. And when you do that, and when you are a specialist, your stock certainly tend to rise. Another reason why I preach placements is that you do not have to put in any extra effort to learn a new concept. You have already learned these concepts in your academic years, and you just have to revise them. And logically speaking, consulting firms that come on campus on average take about 20 to 30 people. And if you do not have a core and IT background, your only available option is the core field, and that's where you're going to get your placement from. So next slide. Step 2 and 3. Let's look at these steps in detail. And so basically, step 2 and 3 basically involve about drafting are basically about drafting your resume and how do you present yourself to the recruiter. First and foremost, in your resume, highlight your education. I know that you do not have enough and ample work experience, so emphasize your education in a great way that show your strengths and show your qualities and your background. Mention your GPA, mention the minor that you have done in college, and definitely mention the coursework. Please include relevant project and details and any certification and online courses that you have done, or you can do it right now also. Some courses you can enroll yourself in the Six Sigma principal course on Coursera, or do some courses on lean manufacturing, or some core field courses, and just include them in your resume. Include relevant work experience. A little digging into your life can unearth several experiences, and I'm personally speaking, when you recollect and start thinking, you come up with various voluntary experiences, you come up with various internships and your extracurriculars. So please mention everything that you have done, even the smallest detail matters. And this is the most important point that I'm going to focus on, is the formatting of your resume. So to bit students, we have a given format, which is the superset format. So always follow the superset format. Second is, please draft your resume in third person and use the action words for resume. So the action words, if you can type on internet, that any Ivy League college also uses certain action words for drafting resume. You can get a list, and a snapshot of the list has also been attached. And please quantify your achievements always. Quantification provides emphasis on what you have done and how many people or how much you have impacted the organization or the project that you were involved in. So please take care of all these details. Then step 4, please know your courses that you have mentioned in your resume. I think that all these courses are advisable. You should mention supply chain management, operations management, mech, solids, material science, and thermo. So I like to touch upon each and every course and provide you with subtopics that will help you. Please focus on Castigliano theorem, shear force diagram, bending moment diagram, Moore circle, stress strain curve, failure theory, torsion, bending, buckling, and deflection. For SCM and OpMan, focus on strategic fit and scope of the supply chain, the drivers of a supply chain and the matrix of the supply chain. Focus on aggregate planning, focus on cycle and safety inventory. Read up a bit on optimal level of product availability. And if you have done any course on lean and sustainable manufacturing, then it's very helpful and beneficial for you. So please mention that also. In lean, if you haven't done, just revise just in time manufacturing, just revise stack time, just read up on types of waste and the 5S system. For material science, just revise the basic atomic structure and the bonding. Read about crystallography. Again, failure theory is important here. They do ask, and the most important thing that they ask in interviews is the phase diagram and the phase transformation. Next slide. Wait. Sorry, Rishabh, if you can just. So yeah, and thermo is something that we all have been taught since first year. So please just revise thermo. First year thermo, I think so, is more than enough. Just read up on the theory of thermo. Numericals aren't important. They don't ask numericals in interviews. Yeah, so you can now. I'll be going to the 6th step, which is the GD. Once your resume has been screened and once you have been called and once you are prepared for your courses, GD is the next step. And basically what they test is your ability to lead and play in a team. Okay, and your communication skills are also tested. Remember, they aren't looking for orators, they aren't looking for speakers, they are looking for people who can just convey their point in an articulate manner. Be expressive but be concise at the same time. You should have decent vocab and you should have decent command over English. Nothing extraordinary is required. Learn to communicate through body gestures. Please use body gestures to communicate. The panelists observe every small detail during the course of discussion. Definitely learn to be a good listener. Listening skills are definitely essential in a GD round. So carefully listen to what others have to say, and also make your point according to the current discussion that's happening. And avoid switching to your native language and avoid using jargons. I've seen it multiple times. I don't think so the panelists take it in good light that you switch into your native language just to give examples. You can give examples in English as well. So that's about GD. GD is fairly simple. They are just testing your presentation skills and your agility. They take it in good light if you have researched about the organization and if you're willing to learn about the organization or not. So read about the SWOT analysis of the industry, read about the challenges faced by the industry, how you can contribute to the industry, and just think about how coming to the industry goes well with your future plans. Now coming to the organization questions, I think so these are very important and very essential. Just think about why do you want to join the organization. They definitely ask you this in HR round, in the final round of interview. They'll ask you this and you should have an answer. You shouldn't just be cooking something up on the spot. They'll instantly catch you. And please prepare this question: where do you see yourself in 5 years? Learn about the current brand/products of the organization that you're applying to, learn about the new ventures, and research about the current market standing of the organization. So even if your technical round of your interview isn't going well, they will give you a free hit, and this is why I call this a free hit. They'll give you a couple of questions to just test you. How interested are you in this organization? Even if you have prepared for this organization or not. And these are the few questions that you can capitalize on, and you can leverage your knowledge that you have researched. And just, I am personally telling you this is a lifesaver. These are lifesaver questions. You should definitely focus on them. Next slide. And the last part is about killing your interviews. If you follow all these parts, you'll definitely kill your interview. Just don't be lazy, don't be lethargic during your placement cycle. Be active, be agile, be focused, and be dedicated. I personally feel that so people usually say that organization selects you, but I think that the process begins when you select your organization. And once you have the companies in mind and you start preparing for it, there's no looking back. It's a one-way street, and your final destination is your dream company. I'm a firm believer of hard work over talent, and I think that if you put in the required hours and if you are dedicated enough, you can achieve anything that you set your heart on. And lastly, I'm going to end it by saying that please do not get demotivated on getting rejected by a company. If you work hard, there should be no regrets, and rejection is always a part of the process. And just get up and just focus on the next company if you're rejected by one. And if you keep moving and being ambitious and aspirational and work hard, you will obviously do very best, and you'll definitely excel. So I'm going to end it by saying all the best and for your placement cycle. And take care. And if you can reach out to me using any platforms, even LinkedIn works. And thank you to PU for giving me this opportunity to speak to BITS again. And thank you guys.
Before you end, Kovind, one thing I'd just like to ask you is that thank you for going into so much detail as to the entire process, but can you even share with the viewers about what your experience was like and how you reached the conclusion of CORE? Why did you choose CORE?
Okay, so CORE for me, it was the summer interview process where I decided that I'm going to take this shift to CORE. And before that, I was really confused as to what to go into. I was confused between consulting, management roles, banking, finance, and CORE was just somewhere, not even in the pecking order. So I realized when I saw the companies that are coming for summer internship that, there are only 3 types of companies that come. And there are consulting firms who usually hire less people, and they have already hired. And IT, I'm not very fond of coding. I mean, I can, but I just don't see myself doing that in front of a screen for 6-7 hours a day. So that's not my cup of tea. And then the third one is CORE. And I thought that CORE will give me this chance to apply the knowledge that I have learned, and also give me a platform to solve real life problems. So I went into the supply chain field. Thankfully, I ended up with AB and Bev. I learned a lot in those 2 months while I was interning about how supply chain is done in an organization, how you analyze it, what all levers you leverage, what all things you have to look after, how do you look after your inventory, what's your safety stock like, things like that. How do you plan for the next month? What does demand forecasting do? how do people sit for the next month's demand review meeting. So all these things I learned, and I felt that I can, contribute more to the organization once I have a general management role. And the organization also only provided me with the opportunity to get converted to a general management role. And hence, I mean, right now I'm a global management trainee with ABI, but my journey started as a core aspirant and a core enthusiast. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I mean, to switch from such a role where you had no clue about consulting to integrating yourself basically in this industry is it's something that we would hope all students take up. So thank you for going into this detailed breakdown of each step of how to go from not knowing what to do to reaching where you kill your interviews and to basic nuances like for each company. I think we'd like to call upon our next speaker, Soumitra Thakur. Soumitra is a core member of our placement unit. He is currently a student at BITS Milani in his final year. He was a field engineering intern at JSW Infrastructure for his summer internship, and he was also a supply chain management intern at Glenmark Pharmaceuticals. Hi, Soumitra. You may please take it ahead. Yes.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rishabh. I hope I'm audible. Right, yeah. So thanks a lot for the introduction. I also like to thank the previous speakers for elaborately explaining about how the core sector operates and what all opportunities are there. I'll just quickly take the viewers through the project domains that are available in this particular sector. So one of the reasons for choosing core is also the fact that it offers a large range of sectors wherein one can choose a particular domain based on their interest. You you have various domains like R&D, wherein you are working on developing new technologies, analyzing new technologies. There is obviously supply chain, wherein you work on the assembly lines, the supply process, and everything. There is then there's of course the field engineering domain, wherein you get hands-on experience on the field work, and then there is design, obviously. So yeah, these are the various domains that are available. You can go to the next slide. Right. So coming to profile building, all right. So one of the reasons why core turns out to be a very good option for the students is because the profile building, which provides a lot of opportunities for the students in order to build them a good, in order for them to be able to build a good core profile. The CG criteria, especially when you compare the CG demand that core companies demand, it is not very unrealistic, or it is not very harsh for students, especially when you compare it with other streams like consulting. Consulting has known to it has a reputation wherein they end up shortlisting and hiring people who have CGs which are greater than 8.0, 8.5, and that kind of de-incentivizes a lot of students to pursue it, because a lot of students don't have a really good strong CGPA in the first 2 years, and then they get demotivated as to whether they will even be able to reach that particular benchmark at the end of their fourth year or during the placements. Code does not introduce such an impediment for the candidates, because majority of the core companies don't have a very strict CG criteria. They have a decent CG criteria of around 7, 7.5, and people in that particular range can easily try for these companies projects. Now coming to the projects aspect, a good core profile has good core projects, and BITS Pilani offers really good projects. There are a lot of professors who are pursuing a PhD, who have completed their PhD and are pursuing have research interests in different domains, and based on your interest, it is pretty easily available for you to access these projects and take up SOPs and DOPs and LOPs, various study-oriented projects, design projects, as well as laboratory projects, and this only shapes your profile and in a more diverse manner. Coming to the PS1 stations, there are a lot of PS1 stations also available in the core sector, which add good brand value to your resume. There are really good PSUs who are also offered for the PS1 internship. And coming to the SI lineup, so as even COVID mentioned, there are only three sectors in SI. There are three broad sectors in SI. One is IT, obviously, IT data analytics. Then there is consulting and a couple of finance companies, which hire in a much lower proportion. And then there is core. So the SI lineup does include good core companies for you to be able to apply for them. So yeah, it does become a lucrative sector. Yeah. Right. So the most important part of this particular presentation is the current market scenario. All right. So why is this particular time a good particular scenario? Why is this particular current market scenario a good scenario for you to consider core? Now, in seasons where we have observed that the IT sector is under hiring and catering only to the circuital branches, or even um, laying off. For example, we have observed a couple of companies revoking offers, revoking PPOs as well. In such a scenario, core presents to be an option which is much more stable, much more safer, and it has a sure shot. It has a sure shot risk to reward ratio, in my opinion, and which incentivizes the candidates to take it up further. Competition also ends up being relatively lower in this particular field because you're already at an advantage because you compete only with your branch mainly in some of the roles. Whereas when it comes to IT, being not being from the circuital branch at times turns out to be a major impediment in you trying to appear for those roles, which is not something which is observed in core, and hence it incentivizes students to take up this particular option because we have observed that there are not a lot of companies, a lot of IT companies that are hiring currently in the current market scenario. So it certainly pushes you to consider developing profiles which are oriented towards core because it has a lot of opportunities and it has a lot of domains that you can tackle based on your interest. Yeah, that's more about it. I think I've covered the major incentives for people to pursue core in this particular scenario.
Thank you, Samudra. I think this will surely help out people in choosing what domain they want and will help clear out any confusion that they may have right now. Uh, so we move on to the last part of our talk, which is the questions part of it. And we had floated a Google form, and all viewers can scan the link on their screen to add any more questions. But until they do so, I'll ask the few questions that have been asked on the form before. So one of the questions asked to us is that what are the most common interview questions and what are some of the basic expectations that they have from students sitting for either in SI or placement? So any of you can take it up.
I'll take that up. I think so. The questions that are asked in your interviews are similar for SI and for the placements. Uh, it's resume based fairly, and the courses that you have mentioned in your resume. So be very careful about the courses that you are mentioning. If you aren't thorough with a course, please, I advise you not to mention it. Revise supply chain because that's one course that recruiters usually end up asking, and be thorough with your projects. Every detail, uh, every aspect of that project is important. They end up asking you the most minute detail, and so yeah, go through your resume again and again. Please be thorough with your projects and what you have done in your internships. Like companies like Exxon and companies like ABI and companies like JSW, they end up asking questions on your resume. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes, Arnab, yes.
Yeah, I think that was very informative by COVID. Just to add on to that, from what I remember my interviews were 5, 6 years ago, it's very important to read up on the company. So let's say there's a steel company coming in. It helps a lot to know where do they have their plants and what are their capacities. Even that provides an edge. So when you go to the interview and talk, look, I know that you have plants at site XYZ, and I'm very keen on this. Why? Because you are already taking ABC initiatives that will help you stand out. And it's also important to go through the list of values that the firm follows, because interviewers would typically look at a person organization fit or a person job fit. So person job fit can be evaluated through a technical interview. A PO fit is more through the HR rounds and discussions, wherein they'll subtly evaluate you. So you need to be very thorough with your resume. Everything that you have mentioned, let's say a cost saving or something, you need to be thorough as to how did you arrive at those figures. And as far as technicals are concerned, yes, you need to understand the technical concepts of fundamentals of mechanical engineering.
Thank you for that,
And
Arnab.
for steel plants, especially be thorough with your iron carbon diagram. They will definitely ask.
Sorry, I cut you off. You may continue.
I mean, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Another question that we have is: do companies like HUL, Schlumberger, etc., prefer graduates who have done some sort of research or any sort of like research work in their respective domains when shortlisting or selecting these students? And Arnab, you may even take this up in sort of like how this affects in like future roles or like growth within the company.
Rishabh, could you please repeat the question? Do
Um,
companies like HUL and Slum
no, like
shortlist
any
people?
core. Yeah, any core companies, do they prefer graduates who have done research in their respective domains? And like, how important is that a factor for getting shortlisted initially and growth later on?
Okay, so look, I've never been on the recruitment side of things, but if you have researched on something which the company is also working on, let's say, materials for a material company or uh, cradle to grave plastic handling solutions for a petrochem company, then definitely I believe there'll be higher chances of a shortlist because that straight away stands out. And you are also able to vector the interview in your favored direction. As far as once you join the company, I think it all depends on your performance. But all these things basically provide you a chance to control the flow of the interview. So when you talk about everything extra that you have done, you are basically telling them that there's another reason why you should select me over your peers.
That makes sense. Uh, Another question that we've been asked is more of a sort of a technical knowledge based question, is something Soumitra can take up as: what are the major core companies that visit the campus for SIN placements, and what are their CTC slash base offers provided? Because this is generally a big concern among students.
Right, sure. I'll take this up. Right. So, I would like, I feel that I can categorize the companies that come for SIN placements in the core domain into 3 to 4 categories. So, first is the category of oil and gas companies. So, the kind of oil and gas companies that come to campus is there's ExxonMobil, there's Schlumberger, then there is JSW who offers certain projects in that particular domain. Gale has visited campus for placements before, and so yeah, these are the kind of companies that come for the oil in the oil and gas sector. There's even Vedanta and Kane who have visited the campus before. Now there are other companies in the manufacturing domain. For example, there's JSW, there's Tata Steel, there is so these are the companies that come in the manufacturing domain. There are also companies that come in the supply chain sector. Obviously, there is HUL, there is PNG, Abinbev, there is Mondelez, um, there are other companies as well who come for the supply chain category. Now, talking about the base pay or talking about the CTC, it's again very dependent on the role that you're working for. Management roles or supply chain trainee roles generally offer better CTCs as compared to traditional or GET roles. Um, but both of these particular categories have equal growth opportunities. I would say that a GET role generally averages between 14 to 15 or maybe 12 to 15 LPA. And when you talk about certain management roles, they can range from 15 to 18 right up to 30, 33. So like, for example, HUL and PNG have considerably good CTCs, but this is something which is primarily observed in the FMCG industry only, or maybe in the food product or beverages industry. So in those particular industries, supply chain trainees do get good payments, but that is something which is more towards the management aspect, and that is something which incurs, or that's something which is a result because of which there are higher pays over there. So yeah, I think I've addressed the questions.
Um, Another question that we had was, a lot of the talk was mentioned upon what will be good to add to your resume and what will be like a nice embellishment. But someone has asked that what are the basic necessary factors that are required to be shortlisted in such a company? The most fundamental things, if to so to say. Anyone who can take this up, yes.
Right, so I'll take this up because I like have been viewing the interview process currently. So like I'll just give you a brief idea about it. So when it comes to the shortlisting process, most of the companies have a resume shortlisting round followed by a test, or a test followed by a resume shortlisting round. So the criteria they look at it. All right. So CGPA is not a blanket. There is no blanket cut on CGPA generally. If you have a 6.5 plus or a 7 plus CGPA, there's a decent chance that you can be shortlisted, because those are the criteria which the companies place at the very beginning while they accept applications. Post that, they generally look for a decently a rounded resume. For example, the resume should have a decent format. The resume should include at least one project. The resume should include one work experience. So these are the criteria or parameters that they evaluate. There are certain checks which they have, certain checks which the company keeps in general to value a resume. Again, this varies from company to company and from sector to sector. When, for example, if it's a management trainee role, or for example, it's a supply chain role, wherein more management skills are tested, in those particular cases, maybe PORs might help you in getting a shortlist. At the same time, if it's a proper GET core role, projects and internships might help you. So that is generally how the shortlisting works. In case of tests, you obviously have a mixture of aptitude-based questions and certain technical questions. There is both of them are generally given equal weightage, and the addition of the two scores is tallied. And in this particular section also, there are certain limit scores which the company sets, and if you clear it, they are happy to take in as many people who clear it. So it's not as if they come with a fixed mindset of only taking or clearing 40 people from the test. In case everyone is scoring well, they don't mind taking a larger number as well. This is something which I've observed. Now, there are certain companies like HUL and PNG who have psychometric based shortlisting. Now, this shortlisting does not have a very sure shot method of cracking it, but if you stick to the fundamentals, if you review the company's policies, if you review the company's ideologies and answer accordingly, there might be a higher chance of you clearing. You, in general, have to avoid presenting certain red flags for the companies. For example, you cannot, if you know that if you just orient your entire profile, wherein if the company is confident that you are going to go into research immediately after your college, they might be slightly de-incentivized in hiring you. So this is a few things that you can keep in mind. But again, as I said, the psychometric test is also not very, it does not have a sure shot method of cracking. For example, there are a lot of people who feel that their profiles were right for the company's role. However, they haven't been shortlisted. So that also happens at times when it comes to the psychometric based hiring for companies like HUL and PNG. So yeah, that's more about it.
Thank you, Samitra. One last question I think that we had was someone has asked, they wanted to know if the core subject's knowledge has to be retained up to 1 or 2 years after they decide to switch firms, or the interviews that they use to like switch firms or like switch to another company are solely based on their experiences. So probably Arnab or Kovit, you all can take this up.
Should I go first? Okay, so in your day-to-day job, you will need to understand things, and that would require you to retain your core knowledge. I mean, people may not ask you to trace the entire circuit and calculate enthalpy values and isometric efficiencies and all that, but you will, I mean, you will graduate with enough knowledge to retain and apply it in a day-to-day job. As far as exit interviews are concerned, if you apply for other firms, you will be selected for what you have done in your previous firm, and that is a function of how well do you understand things, which itself is a function of how well have you retained your core knowledge. As far as B school interviews are concerned, definitely expect questions from your core knowledge. So every interview I've given, I've definitely been asked on the iron carbon diagram. So that is how it works. I mean, it's not difficult. It's not even taxing on your mind. It's fairly simple. Nobody's asking you to calculate efficiency values and all that. But see, you will also be working with a lot of people who do not understand the physics behind all of this. So you might have to translate things to them into something as simple as that the fluid is flowing from a higher energy level to a lower energy level, basically delta H and all that. So that is how it works. I hope that satisfies the questioner.
Kohit, if you have something to add.
No, I think Arnav articulated it perfectly. Like you need to have your core knowledge and you need to just revise it on a regular basis because questions end up coming to you, and that's your undergrad degree, right? You can't just take it lightly, even if you have a job in hand. You have to, I mean, apply it, and to apply it, you need to learn it and revise it. So, spot on by Arnav there.
I think
So
that sums it.
just to
Sorry,
add
yes.
on, I had a very pathetic attendance in MDD. Ended up paying for it in my job. Had to go through bearing notifications and everything again and again. So do pay attention in your classes or come back and read up. There is no escape from this.
Thank you for that addition, Arnav. I think that pretty much sums up our entire talk. Thank you to Kovid, Arnab, and Soumitra for taking out their time on a Sunday. And thank you to all viewers for also tuning in for our talk today. I hope this has at least cleared out some things which people may think that, oh, core is just something, it's not worth it, it's not worth pursuing, and has shown you that these two alumnus that we have here have given their time, effort, and have taken such great interest in their companies and have basically been integrated as a part of their work culture. And that definitely has something to show that the core companies that come to BITS do give you the great opportunity to learn and proceed to become probably as big as you can. With that, I'd like to thank all the speakers and all the viewers for tuning in. And that's it from the training unit of the placement unit at BITS Pilani Pilani campus. Good evening.
Thank you,
Thanks a lot.
Rishabh. It was a great initiative by the placement unit. Thank you for the opportunity.